Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
First of all, before we get to it, Brewers-wise, obviously winter meetings and the hot stove season going on, it sure feels like or seems like there's a lot more chatter surrounding Freddy Peralta and a lot of teams interested, but why wouldn't a lot of teams be interested in Freddy Peralta? We've heard Trevor McGill rumors. We've heard Nick Mears rumors. I want to get your thoughts on all of them. Like, for me, I feel like almost the McGill one kind of makes sense because Uribe's there. You know, even when McGill came back, Uribe stayed as the closer in that. I think he's projected to get an increase up to $6 million potentially this year. The Mears one kind of confuses me a little bit. I know some people say, well, it opens up, a little bit more maybe for some AAA guys. Before we get to the Peralta thoughts now, what were your thoughts on the rumors surrounding the McGill and Mears, I guess, trade rumors out there?
Wasn't really surprised. I mean, we're kind of seeing early in free agency that, relief pitching, especially, competent to good free agent pitching is definitely something that's valued by teams.
Yeah.
So if you've got some of those guys, I mean, you're certainly going to listen. And obviously this is kind of the Brewers' MO that, hey, if relievers start to, kind of creep up in their salary and it's a place of depth, which it generally is with the Brewers, that, you would listen. I mean, at this point, I think the Brewers have definitely deserved the benefit of the doubt of if they trade somebody, they will find somebody else that will be able to do good things. I mean, we've seen a long track record of that, especially with this current, administration, I guess, for lack of a better word, where, someone comes out and that they always seem like they have that person that's next up, and then, they can find the depth to go with it. And so, there's other teams that really, they can't do that. So, well, when you can't do that, what do? You go to find someone somewhere else.
Right.
So, I mean, it's something where if you can trade from a position of depth to maybe help you somewhere else in some way, you have to at the very least look into it. And that's what a lot of the winter meetings are. It's just a lot of talking. I mean, sometimes move gets made. Sometimes you get kind of the framework for trades that ultimately come to pass. But if nothing else, it's just a place where a lot of people have a lot of conversations.
And then Freddy Peralta, obviously, a big time, talking point in that. Does your gut tell you one way or the other? Do you feel different one way or the other after the rumors and reports that we heard from winter meetings that maybe the Brewers cracked the door open a little bit more and such? Do you have a better feel, or does your gut tell you one way or the other, a little bit different from maybe before what winter meetings were?
Not really. I mean, I think that Peralta's ability, but also his cost, I think are going to maybe open up a few more doors than maybe, Corbin Burnes did a few years ago.
Yeah.
Just because Corbin Burnes was making roughly double what Freddy Peralta was. And I think you certainly could say that Corbin Burnes was a better pitcher maybe than Freddy Peralta, but, it wasn't significant. It certainly wasn't the distance wasn't, twice the cost. So, I mean, that just means you're going to have more teams that are in it. That more teams that feel like, hey, we can have that conversation. And if you're the Brewers, I mean, there's no reason not to.
Yeah.
Just because you have a conversation with someone doesn't mean you have to commit to anything. But, you never know what someone's going to offer you until you let them.
Right.
So, you have those conversations, and then you kind of go from there. I think, ultimately, if the Brewers make a big deal, whether it's, a big trade, whether it's Freddy Peralta or not, it's going to come as a trade. I just don't see them kind of forking out a bunch of money for a free agent, like a relatively significant free agent, not obviously, Akil Baddoo, which we'll talk about here, I'm sure, in a little bit, but, someone that could be a legitimate difference maker. That's probably going to come in a trade.
So you mentioned it's Akil Baddoo. Probably not a name a lot of people are familiar with, at least Brewers fans and such. To come out of winter meetings, though, I think it's like, oh, wait, Brewers fans probably like, got to find out who this guy is if Ken Rosenthal's reporting it, and all that stuff. But spent a lot of time, majority of his time in AAA last year, right? Part of the Tigers organization. Did I see he originally drafted by the Twins in 2016? I
believe so. I believe he was a Rule 5 pick for the Tigers.
Okay.
And kind of stuck on the team there and then stuck around. I mean, I look at it as he's someone that's going to come to spring training with a chance to make the team. I mean, I don't think that you're expecting too much. I mean, he's a guy that, there's skill there. He's got some power. He's got some speed, but there's also some swing and miss. I mean, just someone I think that's going to be added into that, that outfield mix, which we know is, pretty packed. I mean, when you look at the kind of the state of the Brewers and, what they develop, but, he's someone, I believe, and I'm going to double check on this just to be sure, but I believe he has an option left. So he could be a guy that they bring in that could, maybe make a difference at the major league level. But at the same time, if he doesn't make the team, I'm trying to, according to Fangraphs, he has an option left. So he is someone that, basically certainly a 40-man roster outfielder to where, if he doesn't make the team on spring training, he can go down to AAA, and then he can maybe be that first guy up if somebody gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe looking for someone with a little bit more big league experience in that spot if/when that situation arises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, again, I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, you look at the outfield there. It kind of feels like this is a typical Brewers move, right? I mean, we've seen countless moves similar to this.
Right.
So.
And that's, these get a little bit more attention than maybe they do in other sports just because of the nature of baseball offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Where so much of it isn't done in the first 2 or 3 days that those can a little bit easier kind of fall through the cracks if it's a depth signing, in the NFL or, the NBA. But, right now, I mean, we had a couple of moves this week, obviously, but, significant ones. But, there's still a lot of things yet to be decided out there with, who ends up where.
Tired there, dude? A little bit. Putting in the midnight oil, man. You mentioned some of the big moves so far. Actually, hold on. I want to go back to one more thing with the Brewers. Pat Murphy also chatted a little bit with the media at winter meetings and that, and obviously Joey Ortiz was brought up, and I think this was like a typical Pat Murphy type of answer from what we've gotten to know. He empowers his players, he builds up his players, and he said Joey's going to be better offensively. I know this. We know this. He's going to be better offensively, and I think, for any Brewers fans, maybe like, okay, calm down here, Pat. He did the same kind of with Bryce Terang, right? And it worked out. Bryce Terang got a lot better in that. Joey Ortiz, I think there's still maybe a little apprehension. But again, this to me just screams this is Pat Murphy's style. It's not just a coach with X's and O's. You got to manage people, right?
Right. And at this stage of the game, there's no harm in saying that because, he's not going to come out and be like, yeah, well, we just need to do better than that. Like, he's not going to come out and do that.
Right.
I mean, so, no, I mean, right now at this point, it makes sense. And, I mean, it's actually not a, bad bet to make because really can't be too much worse. So,
right.
So, no, I mean, it's, to me, I don't say lip service, but I just use it as, yeah, you're right. It's coach kind of right now saying, saying the right thing, knowing that it's, it's possible that, a week, a month from now, whatever, there might be somebody else that's, in that spot or challenging for that spot.
As of right now, though, is Joey Ortiz essentially the Blake Perkins of the infield?
Kind of.
Where maybe spots start here and there, but defensively.
I mean, Ortiz is younger, if you go back to 2024, he showed a little more offensively than Perkins has. But
because he was batting third sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the thing with him too. Is you can see a decent sample size of success at one point and say, hey, no, he's been able to be productive as a major league hitter. So it's not like he's always been thought about as this guy. Well, he'll play defense, but he'll never be able to hit. It's like, well,
right.
He's been able to do it. It's just that it just didn't happen at all last year.
Right.
So, I mean, still being a relatively younger guy, like, you're certainly not going to give up on him. But if this is a team that once again expects to, be in contention, like you can't have another year of trying to work through the lack of offense he provided last year. To me, you can't be a legitimate contender and just say, oh no, that's fine.
Right. So some of the big moves. You got Schwarber going back to the Phillies. I don't think that really kind of surprised a whole lot of people. Were you surprised with the contract? Yeah, and on average, though, it's about $30 million. So, I mean, if you do a yearly thing there. I don't know if some people were expecting more.
I don't know. Because he's always such a tricky player because he's very, very good at what he does.
Yeah.
But what he does is a very specific thing.
Right.
He's a DH. He's a power hitting DH. I mean,
that bats lead off.
Right. Like, and he has good on base skills and stuff like that. But like, he's not going to play the field a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, that you're kind of limited in that way.
Right. Edwin Diaz goes to the Dodgers. And then Pete Alonso goes to Baltimore. That's got to be the more maybe intriguing or surprising one?
I think so. I mean, it's interesting because, from what I've seen, there are many Mets fans who were not super happy because they wanted to keep Pete Alonso because they like Pete Alonso. But it is very interesting that both ends of the Devin Williams, Pete Alonso thing have now not switched, but one's out, one's in.
Yeah.
Kind of a spot. But, I mean, it's a big swing for Baltimore. Baltimore was a team coming into last year that had legitimate, postseason / maybe World Series, outlook.
Or even 2 years ago when they got Corbin Burns.
We're saying 2 years ago, too.
Yeah.
So and the last 2 years have not gone the way they hoped. So they invested. I mean, they had some corner infield guys that were younger, but still, I mean, nobody at the Pete Alonso level.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and to me, it's always going to be interesting and kind of a good thing when you see who I would consider to be non-traditional spenders spending for, frontline free agents. Like, I think that's a good thing. I don't really have a thought in the race on when it comes to Baltimore. What do I think? But it's just like, well, it's good that someone else threw some money out there to bring in a big name free agent. Obviously, that's going to be a big deal for them. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, you pair them up with Holiday, Gunnar Henderson, and such. You look at that division, just got a little bit more, even more intriguing, we shall say, because I mean, you got Toronto, you got Boston, you got the Yankees. Tampa Bay's always there. It feels like if you want to, they'll probably still be picked last for this upcoming year, and they'll probably still be in the hunt. I mean, that's at least right now, to me on paper, that looks to be the most competitive top to bottom division.
Probably
in baseball.
top to bottom, just because of you're kind of minimizing who's the weak link there,
right?
Versus there's some other divisions where you might have 3 teams or something, or 4 even, but like your last place team is pretty bad.
Yeah.
So, and that's not the case for the AL East right now.
Right. So, kind of interesting. I mean, Kyle Tucker is probably the best available, would you say, right now out there from a position player standpoint?
Probably.
Now I'm wondering, like, okay, the Baltimore makes that. Does that move the needle for like a Boston or the Yankees? Say, hey, we got to counter that sort of thing?
Right. I mean, a few of those AL East teams were teams that had been kind of connected to Freddy Peralta. So,
yeah,
we don't know. I mean, that's. You don't want to think that teams are that reactionary when it comes to things, but at the same time, they're looking.
Right. And it feels like outside of Freddie, the big name from a trade standpoint is Marte from the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, Ketel Marte, who should have. I mean, if he's legitimately available, I mean, he's a very, very good player, so there should be a market for him.
Did I see too? Like Tampa Bay was potentially involved in that, which is like, oh man, AL East is just going to steal some of the headlines in this. It feels like.
It might.
So, but. Hot stove season, because winter meetings is over with now, I think.
I believe
right?
so, or it's wrapping up. So that was kind of the they meet at some hotel somewhere, and then there's just stuff going on all the time.
Right. Really quick before we got to take a break, going back to the Peralta one, I'm sure you read the Athletic piece by Ken and Will where they talked about Peralta, and there was a Brewers official that they talked to, and the quote that the Brewers official said, "It's been a good week." Talking about the conversations and such with Freddy Peralta, which, I'm sure some people are probably saying good week because you want to trade him or just good week because there's a lot of interest in that. I mean, you could take it, I guess, a couple different ways.
Right. And that's how kind of when you said that, that's kind of how I thought about it. It's like, well, I mean, if you have a lot of people reaching out to you to talk to you about your players, obviously that means something.
Right.
So I mean, it never hurts to have the conversations. It doesn't mean you have to pull the trigger, but if you have a lot of people reaching out saying, "Hey, what do you think?" Blah 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 blah.
Right.
That's a good thing because especially because that word gets around too, and then suddenly if you're the Red Sox, the Yankees were
exactly
talking, or this or that,
let's
or
get into a bidding war, right?
Kind of, and that's. I mean, that's what the Brewers want. I mean, that it's going to have to get to a certain level for them to make the deal. But that's how it happens. I mean, that really didn't happen with Corbin Burns, in part, I think, probably just because of the cost.
Right.
And, I mean, maybe you just have teams now that are a little bit more motivated to make that move.
Yeah.